In this video, we're going to take a look at the sweeping rent control bill, AB 1482, that was recently passed into law, and some of the specific implications for landlords, homeowners, and corporate investors. Now, first of all, I'm not an attorney, and nothing in this video should be construed as legal advice. I recommend that you consult an attorney prior to making any decisions based on this information. So, on October 8th, 2019, Governor Newsom signed the bill AB 1482 into law in California, which made changes to and added several sections to the California Civil Code relating to tenant and landlord laws. Now, there were several significant changes made. The two most significant are the cap on annual rent increases from the preceding year and the requirement for just cause when terminating a lease after a tenant has resided there for more than 12 months. Now, let's first look at the rental cap. Effective on rent increases going back to March 15, 2019 and after, a landlord may not raise the rental rate of the immediately preceding 12-month period of a unit by more than 5% plus the regional consumer price index or CPI factor in the area that the property is located, with a maximum allowable increase notwithstanding CPI of 10%. Big mouthful, I know. Now, the fact of the matter is that most property owners haven't really been raising rents this much annually to begin with, so this restriction is going to be felt minimally by most property owners, in my opinion. However, though, this will effectively punish landlords who have been easygoing on tenants and have not been raising rents to keep up with market rates. So in these cases, the landlord is now capped at the amount that they can increase their rents to, despite being underpriced comparative to the marketplace. Now, these rental increase caps go hand in hand with the new just cause requirement that I mentioned earlier for terminating tenancies. Now, previously, despite a tenant having occupied a unit for at least 12 months, at the end of a lease or at any point in a month-to-month lease, a landlord could simply give a 60-day notice to terminate the tenancy without citing any specific reason. Now, with the new just cause requirement, landlords must now provide a reason provided for in the just cause section of the bill in order to terminate tenancy with a tenant who has lived in the unit for at least 12 months, has abided by the terms of the lease, and desires to stay. Now, there are also at-fault and no-fault just causes, and the implications of each slightly change the proceedings. First off, if it's an at-fault just cause that is curable, such as a failure to pay rent, then the landlord needs to give a period of time for the tenant to cure the fault before they may terminate the tenancy. Now, there have already been somewhat similar provisions for at-fault tenancy terminations in existing law, but the no-fault provisions are the most significant changes in my opinion. So some of the just cause reasons allowed for a no-fault termination of tenancy include intent of the property owner to occupy the property or to have a spouse, child, grandchild, parent, or grandparent occupy the property. Withdrawal of the lease from the rental market entirely, so you just want to take it off of the market. You're not renting it anymore. Number 3, intent to demolish or substantially remodel the unit, defined by significant remodeling of a major system or systems that cannot be reasonably accomplished in a safe manner with the tenant in place, and that requires the tenant to vacate the unit for at least 30 days. So in other words, if you're thinking, hey, I'm just going to argue just cause tenancy termination for property renovations, but then you're really intending to perform primarily cosmetic improvements like painting or replacing the carpeting, it's probably not going to fly with these new rules. Now, for any of the no-fault just cause reasons for termination, and here's where it starts to impact your wallet as a landlord, the landlord is required to pay or credit the tenant the equivalent of 1 month of rent within 15 days of the termination notice. And you might be wondering, are there any loopholes to any of these exemptions? This is a very sweeping bill that just got passed. Are there any loopholes to this at all? And the good news is that there are some loopholes for sure. So firstly, or exemptions, I should say, not necessarily loopholes. Now, firstly, properties that are exempt are single-family houses or condominiums not owned by investment trusts or corporations. In other words, most mom and pop single-family investors out there. And additionally, duplexes and houses with ADUs in which the owner occupies one of the units from at least the beginning of the lease and continues to do so throughout. There are also several other exemptions, including new construction that has been built in the previous 15 years, student housing owned by an institute of higher learning, such as dorms, transient and tourist housing, as well as a few others. So it looks like if you own a threeplex and live in one of the units, you're not exempt. But if you live in one side of a duplex, you are, okay? So you might be wondering also if this is really going to impact you or your California real estate. For most property owners, I think the impact for the time being will be minimal. In fact, when regulations are placed on how business is conducted, it often seems, in my experience, that the operation expands to the limits of the laws, right? So in other words, although most property owners aren't currently raising rents on their tenants at 7% consistently every single year, the limitation of annual increases might now ironically incentivize them to do so more consistently and raise the rent so they don't get left behind down the road. Now, on the other hand, if you are an apartment complex owner, for example, this new law is likely to be felt more acutely, especially if you've not been keeping up with market rents each year and you've been letting your tenants get by with great low rents. Also, one more clarification to point out, as it might not be clear in this, is this only applies to subsequent increases on existing tenancies, which is a great clarification to understand. So in other words, once a unit is vacated, the owner is allowed to once again independently reset their market price for the next tenant. And there's certainly more to this bill. However, if you have any questions and you'd like to discuss or strategize or learn the other ins and outs about this, then feel free to reach out. I'd love to talk to you about this and see how we can implement some investment planning with these new laws in place. And if you found value in this video, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.